Welcome to today's ColorThink training. We'll be covering the grapher, the profile inspector, and then a bunch of different things that you can do in the worksheet. You bring in Adobe RGB and you bring in swap, and people pretty quickly get a good idea of how gamuts compare and the differences between them. But to get into analysis, especially 3 dimensions, is a lot more useful. You can see the 2 gamuts intersect here, and Change It does a pretty good job of allowing the interior to show through, and also in a way it highlights the bits that stick through. But you can also take these little tabs here and simply drag them in to the grapher, and you can see that 100% yellow point is right there. And go into the tag table. I'm going to open all the measurements that made that profile into the worksheet, and then from here I'm going to graph them. The measurements, the cloud of measurement points that made the profile, correspond pretty closely to the gamut boundaries of that profile. And you can see there's a whole chunk of the gamut volume that is missing. I'll say, well, wait a minute, what was the data that created this profile? And the light cyan was working fine. It was the dark cyan that was a problem. It wasn't obvious to the eye when we got the target and built the profile that this problem existed. And you can get a feeling for what the gamut of a duotone is, for instance. Or if you're training people, you can say, well, this is a 4-color gamut, and this is a 3-color gamut. Well, the first set of points you get is the very points that constructed the gamut surface. And then there's a little function here called join with lines. If I look at this thing in 2D, there's a significant hue shift. Just see how the shape of the gamut changes as you change that particular ink. If you see some large gaps, then you may want to increase the resolution of the target. So you need to make sure you have a target that effectively samples the highlight region in the neutrals. And this one, well, they're all instantly turned into vectors, as you can see. It allows us to colorize the vectors depending on their length, which can be pretty handy, so that you can see why they map to a certain spot and why they stop. But sometimes profiles just do weird things. If you have these colors over here, they're going sideways, and so are these. They're kind of swirling around gray. And when a color moves sideways instead of moving in toward gray, that's a hue shift. This can be a very effective tool for education as well. You can compare this, of course, with the gamut of any printing system. This can definitely help people get a good understanding of what goes on with color and with gamut. Whereas in reality, large portions of this image are out of gamut, and so will not reproduce in an expected way. And if you are going to save something as a QuickTime movie, what I would recommend is these settings, 24 frames total. Don't want to interrupt this process. You don't even want to move windows on top of this window as it's doing it, because that can cause problems.